Since ancient times, the outer gods, known as the absolute beings, reigned supreme. These omnipotent entities were creators of countless universes, weaving existence itself with their boundless power. Their pursuit of eternity was tireless, leading them to forge endless matter, souls, and unbreakable laws. Through these acts of creation, they sought fulfillment, hoping to find meaning in the infinite span of their existence. But their efforts eventually gave way to monotony. The ceaseless cycle of creation and expansion no longer fascinated them. To escape their growing boredom, the absolute beings devised a means to pass time, a brutal and chaotic spectacle. They incited wars among their own creations, observing as worlds clashed and beings fought for survival. The destruction and rebirth that followed these battles became their entertainment. Countless beings perished, only to be revived, as the wars raged on endlessly, feeding the insatiable boredom of their creators. Then an extraordinary event shattered the routine. Amid one of these endless conflicts, an absolute being met an unthinkable fate: death at the hands of one of their own creations. The impossible had occurred, and its implications were staggering. The slain absolute being left behind a world ungoverned, a reality bereft of its master. The remaining absolute beings, hailing from dimensions far and wide, convened to witness this unprecedented phenomenon. They gazed upon the forsaken world, where the power of their fallen comrade now lay unclaimed. Yet instead of grief or outrage over the act of defiance by one of their creations, they felt only a shared hunger, a desire for the untethered power. The betrayal did not matter, only the prize did. With this shared ambition igniting their hearts, the absolute beings resolved to claim the unowned power. This conflict, born from greed and ambition, marked the beginning of the War of Outer Gods, a battle that would forever alter the fabric of existence. The final day of high school was like stepping into a jungle where chaos and emotion filled every corner. Inside a bustling classroom, Sung Jin Woo announced that he had been accepted to the prestigious Korea University of Arts. The announcement sent waves through the room. His classmates couldn't believe it. Whispers and exclamations of shock spread, with many questioning how someone as unassuming as Suho could achieve such a feat. While some celebrated their escape from the grueling years of high school, others struggled with the disappointment of their own failures. As the noise settled slightly, Lee Eun-chul approached Suho. He congratulated Suho on the unexpected achievement, his words tinged with an edge of incredulity. Eun-chul admitted he never knew Suho was so talented, asking since when Suho had become so skilled. Suho turned to face him directly, unbothered by the proximity of the taller student. He addressed Eun-chul with a sly remark, intentionally using the wrong name, referring to him as Kim Sung-cheol. Eun-chul's expression hardened. He corrected Suho firmly, stating that his name was Lee Eun-chul. Suho responded nonchalantly, pretending as if the correction didn't matter. Eun-chul's frustration grew, and he blamed Suho for ruining his plan to take over the school. Suho, however, brushed off the accusation with calm confidence, thanking Eun-chul instead. He noted that Eun-chul's antics had actually helped him graduate, an ironic twist that left Eun-chul seething. Nearby, two girls whispered to each other, watching the interaction from a distance. One remarked how childish Eun-chul still acted, even on the day of their graduation. She wondered aloud why he continued to stir trouble when everyone was ready to move on. The other girl nodded in agreement, expressing sympathy for Suho's struggles, especially given his difficult past. Losing both parents and yet still finding the strength to create a brighter future was something they admired, even if others failed to see it. Just then, Eun-chul swung his fist with force, aiming directly at Suho. The tension crackled in the air, but before the punch could land, Suho acted with lightning speed. He grabbed Eun-chul's head and drove his knee sharply into his face. Suho's stance remained firm, his voice calm but commanding as he tried to defuse the situation. Yet before Suho could finish his thought, Eun-chul pushed himself off the ground, his movements fierce and unrelenting. He charged again, but Suho anticipated the attack, moving faster than his opponent could react. A second flying knee connected with Eun-chul's face, sending him staggering back. Blood trickled from Eun-chul's nose, but he didn't falter. Instead, he grinned, an unsettling expression stretching across his face. His posture radiated raw power, and a strange energy seemed to pulse within him. Swinging his fist again, Eun-chul unleashed a powerful strike. But Suho was quicker. He dodged effortlessly, and the punch collided with a nearby locker instead. The sound of of the impact was deafening, metal denting under the force. Suho's eyes widened as he processed the sheer strength behind Eunchul's attack. The two girls watching from a distance were equally stunned, their expressions frozen in shock. Eunchul himself stared at his fist and the damaged locker, momentarily lost in disbelief. He seemed surprised by his own power, as if something new had awakened within him. Meanwhile, Suho, seated on the floor, observed him intently. The strange, unexplainable energy surrounding Eunchul left Suho with a growing unease, as if this was only the beginning of something far greater. 2 years later, Sung Suho was now a sophomore in college. He walked down a bustling street, the chatter of people and the hum of city life surrounding him. As he moved through the crowd, something unusual caught his attention. Turning his gaze, he noticed a commotion unfolding around the corner. A group of employees from the Hunter Association stood at the forefront of the gathering crowd, urgently directing people away from the area. They announced that classes in the main building had been relocated to the side building, warning everyone to stay clear. A gate had opened, and hunters were currently engaged in a raid. The employees stressed the danger, urging non-hunters to maintain a safe distance. Among the crowd, a man in a black suit asked how long it had been since the hunters had entered the gate. One of the employees replied that it had been over 8 hours, assuring him that the hunters should be finishing soon, given that it was only a D-rank gate. Despite their reassurances, the tension among the onlookers lingered. Some whispered anxiously about what might happen if the gate wasn't cleared, while others expressed confidence in the hunter's ability to handle the situation. Suho stood silently, observing the scene. His thoughts drifted as he pondered the existence of gates. The world had changed drastically 3 years ago with their sudden emergence. Gates were mysterious passageways into dungeons, where monsters lurked, waiting for their chance to escape and wreak havoc. Humanity, however, had not remained static. In response to the gates, certain people began to awaken extraordinary powers, becoming superhumans capable of wielding mana. These individuals, known as awakeners, were humanity's answer to the chaos. Despite the fear and uncertainty that followed the gates' appearance, the disorder was quickly brought under control. An awakener named Woo Jim Chul founded the Hunter Association, uniting these powerful individuals under one banner. This organization became the backbone of the New World, dividing society into two distinct groups: awakeners who fought to close the gates, and unawakened civilians who relied on the hunters for survival. Suho reflected on this divide. For unawakened people like him, life was a constant struggle. While awakeners gained wealth and status effortlessly, those without powers worked tirelessly, only to be painfully reminded of the unbridgeable gap between them. Even the weakest awakeners held an advantage that unawakened civilians could never hope to match. This dependence on hunters was both a source of gratitude and a grim reminder of vulnerability. Without awakeners, the world would crumble under the weight of the gates and their monstrous inhabitants. Yet Suho couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Was he simply becoming accustomed to this imbalance, to a life where he had no power or control? Thoughts of his missing parents and his reliance on others filled his mind, creating a deep void of helplessness. Memories of his mother echoed faintly in his heart, reminding him of her words about how much he resembled his father. Suho wondered how his father, a man he barely remembered, would have confronted such feelings of powerlessness. Lost in thought, Sung Suho's quiet introspection was interrupted by a voice that pulled him back to the present. His art teacher stood nearby, observing him closely. The teacher praised Suho's focus and asked about the subject of his drawing. Suho looked down at his sketch, a peculiar creation taking shape on the paper. It was an ant-like figure, but there was something inventive about its design, almost as if it had human features. The teacher noted this uniqueness, playfully describing it as an ant person. Suho, however, was left questioning why he had drawn such a thing. The image felt strange, almost as if it had emerged from his subconscious without reason. Meanwhile, outside the bustling streets, the scene at the gate unfolded with growing anticipation. Officials from the Hunter Association stood patiently near the entrance, their eyes fixed on the portal. The crowd murmured with excitement excitement and relief as the hunters began to emerge. The squad looked calm and composed, a clear sign that their mission had been successful. One of the Hunter Association employees stepped forward to greet them, offering praise to Kim Jong-soo, the leader of the raid. Kim Jong-soo confirmed that the dungeon raid had been a success, but his expression was grim as he shared troubling news. During the raid, the hunters had encountered a new type of monster. These humanoid creatures emitted an eerie blue flame from their eyes and mouths. While their attacks relied on claws and fangs, Jong-soo noted that they weren't particularly powerful. He reassured the officials that the monsters posed little danger, even pointing out that he remained unscathed despite being scratched during the encounter. However, his tone carried unease as he emphasized the unprecedented nature of these creatures. Since the appearance of the gates, no one had seen monsters like this before. Their existence was a mystery that demanded attention, even if they didn't seem threatening at first glance. The Hunter Association employee acknowledged Kim Jong-soo's report and instructed him to prepare a detailed account of the raid. As Jong-soo prepared to leave, he winced slightly, a deep cut on his thigh dripping blood onto the ground. However, something unnatural began to happen. Instead of blood, a blue flame started to glow from the wound. Jong-soo froze, his vision blurring as a sudden wave of unease overwhelmed him. The sword slipped from his grasp, clattering to the ground. The flames spread rapidly, surging through his body with an intensity that left him paralyzed. Before anyone could react, Jong-soo's expression twisted, and his form began to shift. The transformation was horrifying and swift. His human features gave way to something monstrous, his jaws widening unnaturally as blue flames poured out. In an instant, he turned on the nearest person, his body no longer his own. With terrifying speed, he snapped his victim's neck, the brutal act leaving blood gushing and the surrounding hunters and employees stunned. The carnage escalated. Jong-soo grabbed another hunter, his flaming eyes devoid of humanity. The hunter tried to warn the others, recognizing the blue flames as the same ones seen on the monsters inside the dungeon. But before the warning could be finished, Jong-soo tore into him, sending blood spraying across the chaotic scene. Panic consumed the area as the crowd, which had been gathered nearby, screamed and fled in terror. Cries for help echoed as people ran for their lives, the once organized scene descending into mayhem. Yet the nightmare didn't end with Jong-soo. One by one, the other hunters who had emerged from the gate began transforming, their eyes glowing an ominous blue. They turned on everyone nearby, their monstrous forms tearing through the Hunter Association employees without mercy. In the art class across the street, Sung Soo-ho was quietly drawing, unaware of the chaos, but the distant screams began to penetrate the classroom walls, their intensity growing louder. The students looked out the windows, curiosity giving way to fear as they tried to make sense of the commotion. The sight outside was incomprehensible. Hunters and civilians alike were consumed by the blue flames, their eyes glowing and their movements erratic. They attacked everything in sight, their monstrous instincts taking over as they ran wild in search of prey. The students in the classroom began to panic. Some recognized the signs, whispering fearfully about a possible dungeon break. Others froze, unsure of what to do. A sense of helplessness filled the room as they looked to Ta Lim, the only known awakener among them. But Ta Lim, an E-rank hunter, could only shake his head, his voice trembling as he admitted his own limitations. Sung Soo-ho's gaze locked onto a terrifying sight. One of the monsters perched atop a nearby roof, its glowing blue eyes burning with malevolence. In a swift motion, the creature leapt down, moving with an unnatural speed toward the classroom. The crash of shattering glass filled the air as the monster broke through the window, its attack swift and merciless. One of the students fell victim immediately, struck down with terrifying precision. Chaos erupted, screams echoing as the others fled in panic. Soo-ho, just as terrified as the rest, joined the stampede toward the exit. Amid the chaos, a girl became trapped beneath debris, her desperate cries cutting through the noise. Pleading for help, she struggled to free herself. Soo-ho stopped, his body frozen by fear and indecision. He wanted to help, but the overwhelming dread held him back. Closing his eyes tightly, he tried to block out the sight and sounds around him. The weight of helplessness crushed him. Then suddenly he turned and ran. In his mind, he clung to the flimsy excuse that he would find someone more capable to save her. Outside, his thoughts spiraled into self-loathing. He grappled with the enormity of his failure, realizing he had abandoned someone in need. Guilt gnawed at him as he ran, his inner voice berating him for his cowardice. The curse of being unawakened felt heavier than ever, a constant reminder of his limitations. A memory stirred within him, vivid and haunting. Soo-ho recalled a dream he once had, one that mirrored the
structure of a game. In that dream, he faced monsters that grew progressively stronger with each floor he ascended. To overcome them, he had to grow stronger as well, tirelessly fighting and leveling up. Each victory brought him closer to the pinnacle until he reached the highest floor. There, the final boss awaited, a formidable enemy whose strength was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. What struck him most was the identity of that final adversary. It was not a stranger or a faceless beast. It was his father. Though an enemy in the dream, his father stood as a symbol of unshakable power and resilience. Suho had always seen his father as strong and reliable, a figure who could overcome any obstacle. He wondered how his father had managed to attain such strength and questioned what he would have done in a situation like this. The answer was clear. His father would have acted without hesitation. Back in the classroom, the girl's cries grew weaker as the monster closed in. Its glowing eyes narrowed with predatory focus. She could see her death reflected in the creature's movements, her tears falling in helpless resignation. The beast lunged, its jaws wide open, ready to end her life. Just then, bam! A loud impact reverberated through the room. Suho had returned, wielding a fire extinguisher with all his strength. He struck the monster directly on the head, the force of the blow sending it stumbling backward. Sung Suho stood frozen, his mind racing for answers. He knew the grim reality. The attacks of an unawakened, someone without mana, were useless against a magic beast. Panic clawed at the edges of his thoughts. What could he do? How could he fight back? But then something strange happened. The chaos around him stilled. The girl, the beast, the very air itself seemed frozen in time. Nothing moved. Everything hung in a surreal, motionless silence. Confusion clouded Suho's mind as he tried to comprehend the surreal scene. It felt as though time itself had stopped. A soft chime echoed faintly in the silence, drawing his attention. Before him, a notification appeared, its words clear and unmissable. The message congratulated him for completing the requirements of the quest, called Courage of the Weak. Before he could process this, another notification appeared, offering him the chance to become a player. The words felt like they had been plucked from one of his dreams. The dream where he battled monsters, grew stronger, and ascended through countless trials. The opportunity was too significant to ignore. The idea of gaining strength in a world where survival required power resonated deeply with him. Accepting the offer felt like the only choice. As soon as he made his decision, another message appeared, congratulating him once again. The system promised to help him grow, but warned that this was no dream, and he had only one life to live. New instructions followed immediately, assigning him his first quest: defeat the entity called Mistborn and gain strength through leveling up. The name burned itself into his mind as he felt a shift within himself. Time began to move again. The stillness dissipated as reality snapped back into motion. Suho shouted to the girl, urging her to run. The girl, now aware of her surroundings, scrambled to her feet and fled. Suho's vision sharpened, and he noticed details he had never seen before. Names hovered over the creatures ahead of him, identifying two unawakened and one hunter who had undergone a monstrous transformation. The creatures, now labeled as magic beasts, roared and charged at him with unrelenting ferocity. Sung Suho gripped the fire extinguisher, ready to confront the monsters closing in on him. Summoning all his strength, he swung the extinguisher with brutal force. The impact landed squarely on the nearest beast, sending it reeling. Without hesitation, Suho followed through, rolling his fist into a devastating punch. The strike connected with bone-crushing power, launching the creature upward until it slammed into the ceiling. Staring at his own fist, Suho was stunned by the strength he now possessed. The realization of his awakening was only beginning to sink in when another beast charged at him. Still processing his newfound power, Suho instinctively lashed out with a flying kick. The second monster crumpled on impact, its body smashed into the ground. As the chaos unfolded, notifications filled Suho's vision, confirming his progress. The quest was complete, and rewards were granted for defeating the Mistborn. A flood of satisfaction surged through him as he now felt sure of his transformation. Suho moved quickly to confront the last remaining beast. His fist collided with its face, delivering a thunderous blow. However, the creature barely staggered, withstanding the attack. For a moment, Suho froze in disbelief. His strength wasn't enough to take it down in one hit. The Mistborn retaliated, slashing its claws deep into Suho's chest. Pain coursed through him as he let out a guttural growl of agony. Gritting his teeth, he countered with a desperate kick, sending the beast hurtling across his face. His thoughts raced as he crushed his chest. The sharp realization hit him. If he suffered too much damage, he risked becoming a magic beast himself. Fear gripped him as he wondered if his awakening would be cut short by his grim fate. A notification interrupted his despair. It indicated that harmful side effects had been detected, but neutralized by the effect of longevity. The term struck a chord in his memory. He recalled seeing it briefly in the status window earlier, though its significance now felt monumental. The Mistborn was relentless, rushing at him again. It tackled Suho, pinning him to the ground. His arms strained as he desperately blocked the beast's onslaught. Suho's mind churned with frustration. He realized his strength was insufficient to overpower a D-rank creature, confirming the order rank was likely lower higher than E. As the beast's jaws inched closer, Suho's determination burned brighter. Desperation drove him to act. Scanning the system's interface, he noticed the option to accept his reward. Without hesitation, he activated it. The moment he did, a surge of power coursed through his body. His stats increased, and with them, so did his strength. Sung Suho let out a powerful roar, summoning every ounce of strength to push back the beast, pinning him down. The beast soared through the air before crashing to the ground, its glowing eyes roaring out at Suho with a deadly glare. Unfazed, he lunged at the beast, delivering a devastating punch straight to its face. Blood spattered from the impact, but the creature barely faltered. Frustration gripped Suho as he realized even his strength wasn't enough to take it down. Faced with no other option, Suho accessed the system once more, pouring every reward point he had into his strike shot. A surge of raw power coursed through him as his body felt lighter, faster, and undeniably stronger. Clenching his fist, Suho braced for another round. With unrelenting fury, Suho rushed for a relentless assault. Each punch landing with bone-shattering
begun. The air grew heavy as he approached the heart of the destruction. To his dismay, there were no survivors to be found. The devastation left behind was complete, and Suho stood in silence, lamenting the loss of life. The sword broke the quiet, boasting of its role in eliminating all intruders. It revealed its mission to guard the sanctuary of the monarch of fangs, taking pride in its actions. Frustrated, Suho plunged the sword into the ground, silencing its voice for a moment. A notification suddenly appeared before him, indicating that the shadow extraction skill could be used on the fallen hunters. Suho hesitated as Baru explained that any corpse, regardless of origin, could be transformed into a shadow soldier. Suho considered trying the skill, but stopped himself. Instead, he began to gather the bodies, preparing to take them to the surface. Baru was confused by Suho's decision not to perform shadow extraction. Suho, however, was resolute. Forcing these hunters to fight even after death felt like an additional punishment, one they didn't deserve. Baru cautiously addressed Suho, reminding him about the sword left behind. Suho, deep in thought, acknowledged the weapon but shifted the conversation. He questioned Baru about the sanctuary they were in, confirming that it belonged to a monarch. This brought him to a bigger question. His father, Sung Jin Woo, was also a monarch, but what about the others? Baru responded with reverence and clarity, explaining the intricate hierarchy of the past. He described that the Itarim were the current enemies of his king, Sung Jin Woo. However, the monarchs had been his previous foes. Baru elaborated, listing the 9 monarchs, each representing an overwhelming power. Sung Jin Woo himself was the monarch of shadows, the king of the dead. There was also the monarch of fangs, ruling over beasts, the monarch of plagues, reigning over insects, and the monarch of the iron body, governing monstrous humanoids. Other monarchs included the monarch of white flames, leading demons, the monarch of the beginning, commanding giants, the monarch of frost, ruling snowfolk, the monarch of transfiguration, controlling demonic specters, and the monarch of destruction, ruling berserk dragons. The last planet to step out Some
for being the descendant of the shadow monarch seemed misplaced, if its whole purpose was to protect this place. They should have listened to what the young could continue their protection, especially after its master had failed. The shield reacted with indignation, unwilling to let go of its resentment. But Sung didn't waver. He spoke of his deed, to reunite with his leader and father, who was separated from him because of the invaders from another world. To achieve that, he was willing to crush strength from any source, no matter its origin, so they pointed out the imminent threat of the Eternal, whose invasion would spill nuclear of the world, including this sanctuary. He proposed a partnership, Shadow and Fang, uniting their powers for a common purpose, grabbing the sword and pulling it from the ground. So they made him stand. He offered the sword a choice: cooperation to protect this place, or continued hostility that served no purpose. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, a meeting unfolded in a quiet coffee shop. One dungeon, the lone survivor of the dungeon tragedy, sat with two reporters. They pressed him for details about the first squad's wipeout that had occurred in the D1 dungeon the previous day. When, driven by gratitude and a sense of obligation, agreed to share the story. He hoped that this would bring recognition to Suho, whose efforts had saved many lives despite being an E-rank hunter. Later that evening, an article spread rapidly across the internet. It recounted the incredible story of an E-rank hunter who had single-handedly rescued others from a deadly dungeon. The report included heartfelt interviews from those who had witnessed Suho's bravery firsthand, and from the many lives he had saved. In the Black Tortoise Guild office, the staff gathered around, discussing an article that had quickly gained attention. The article highlighted the extraordinary actions of Sung Suho, an E-rank hunter who had not only fought off magic beasts in a D-rank dungeon, but also carried wounded strike squad members to safety. Lee Young-ho, one of the senior employees, brought up the pressing need to recruit new porters and suggested adding more E-rank hunters to the team. He shared Suho's profile, intrigued by the article's claims. As another employee read through the details, disbelief turned into amazement. The story painted Suho as a rising hero, someone whose courage and capability far exceeded expectations for his rank. We saw this as an opportunity for the guild. He reasoned that recruiting someone like Suho would create buzz and elevate the guild's reputation. The decision was made to contact Suho immediately. The following day, Lee eagerly asked if Suho had responded to their offer. To his shock, the response was a rejection. An E-rank hunter new to the field had turned down an invitation from the prestigious Black Tortoise Guild. Lee struggled to comprehend how a rookie could refuse such an opportunity, expressing disbelief and frustration. His colleagues speculated that Suho would realize the challenges of being an independent hunter and eventually reconsider. Suho's phone buzzed relentlessly, flooded with scouting offers from various guilds. His recent heroics in the dungeon had placed him in the spotlight, with many eager to enlist his talents. Baru, standing by his side, watched with quiet pride as his young monarch garnered such attention. Yet Suho felt no excitement over the offers. Most guilds sought to hire him as a porter or collector, roles that held little appeal for someone striving to grow stronger through the system. For Suho, joining a guild would only hinder his progress, and he saw no reason to consider it. Leaning back on his couch, Suho shifted his focus. His mind wandered to the Fang of Rakhan, the sword from the ruins. He recalled the tense but pivotal conversation he'd had with the sentient weapon. Suho had boldly suggested an alliance between Shadow and Fang. An idea so unconventional that it had momentarily stunned the sword. Yet the Fang of Rakhan had eventually agreed on one condition. The sword demanded to be brought to another sacred ground of the Fang monarch. Suho asked the sword if it knew how to locate such a place. The Fang of Rakhan revealed that it could sense the locations of the sacred grounds, regardless of distance. However, the sword explained that one such sacred site's gate had already disappeared, likely due to what humans referred to as a dungeon break. This meant that the sacred site had turned into a field-type dungeon, a place where monsters had overrun the land after the gate's collapse, rendering it barren and dangerous. With determination, Suho decided to act. He sent a message to his uncle, reassuring him not to worry if contact became impossible, then prepared for his journey. Securing the Fang of Rakhan on his back, Suho rose, resolute in his mission. Suho arrived at the Guanak Mountain Field, a vast and silent expanse bathed in soft moonlight. The air was thick with anticipation as he gazed at the eerie terrain. This place was unlike anything he had encountered before, and he knew it held the answers he sought. As he stood at the edge of the field, doubt momentarily crept into Suho's mind. The location, owned by the notorious Hyena Guild, posed a challenge of its own. This guild, infamous for being comprised of former gang members, was not to be trifled with. Trespassing on their territory was illegal and likely to provoke dangerous consequences. Baru, ever vigilant, suggested that Suho focus on leveling up rather than dealing with unnecessary risks. But Suho had already made his decision. Gathering mana in his hand, he prepared to infiltrate the area. Using his skill, Ruler's authority, he froze the nearby CCTV camera, ensuring it couldn't record his presence. With a calculated squeeze of his fist, the camera shattered, leaving no trace of evidence behind. Baru, observing Suho's actions, couldn't help but draw comparisons to the boldness of Suho's father, the Shadow Monarch. With his path cleared, Suho leapt into the field. The area was shrouded in a dense blue fog that seemed almost otherworldly. The strange mist blanketed the entire space, obscuring visibility and adding to the field's ominous atmosphere. Suho wondered if all field dungeons were like this, filled with such an unnatural haze. Baru explained that the fog was mana from outer space, a force capable of breaking through dimensional barriers and rupturing worlds. The Fang of Rakan, ever aware of its surroundings, added that this very fog had caused the dimensional rupture linking its sacred ground to Earth. The mana was both a source of power and a symbol of the instability that plagued the field. Baru explained that the entities from outer space were working to tear a massive hole in the dimension, allowing their armies to invade. However, the more mana a being possessed, the greater the difficulty they faced in dimensional travel. This meant the truly powerful foes would take longer to arrive. Understanding this, Suho knew he needed to act quickly. Every moment was an opportunity to grow stronger before the inevitable confrontation with more formidable enemies. Determined, he resolved to level up as fast as possible. Suddenly, the quiet of the field shattered as magic beasts emerged from the shadows of the bushes. The creatures revealed themselves. Daggerclaw Virga and Black Shadow Rajan, ferocious beasts with menacing presences. Their eyes glinted dangerously as they charged towards Suho. The Fang of Rakan, ever ready for battle, declared its eagerness to demonstrate its power, but Suho, confident in his strategy, decided otherwise. While appreciating the weapon's might, he made it clear it wouldn't be his primary choice. Instead, Suho prepared himself, formulating a combat plan. Drawing on his experience, he decided to base his fighting style on the hand-to-hand combat techniques he had mastered in the tutorial, enhancing it with Ruler's authority for mid to long range attacks. He also planned to use a variety of weapons to keep his opponents guessing. As the beast closed in, Suho clenched his fist and delivered a crushing blow to one of their faces. The impact was decisive, sending the creature reeling. Without hesitation, he followed up with a flying kick to another beast's torso, demonstrating his agility and precision. Reaching for the Fang of Rakan, he activated his skill, Storm Slash, unleashing a torrent of destructive energy. The sword carved arcs of devastation through the horde, leaving no beast unscathed. Amidst the carnage, Suho devised an innovative approach. Utilizing shadow extraction, he began acquiring equipment and reinforcements from the remains of his defeated foes. To enhance his capabilities, he summoned his Shadow Gauntlets, a manifestation of his growing power. Baru, watching Suho's performance, couldn't hide his admiration. The young monarch's prowess was unmistakable. unbeatable. Meanwhile, the Fang of Rakan reflected on the spectacle, realizing the terrifying potential of Suho's lineage. The power of the Shadow Monarch's bloodline was undeniable. Suho's strength grew with every fallen enemy, and the longer the battle continued, the more formidable he became. It was clear why the Shadow Monarch's forces had been so feared in the ancient war. As the dead beasts rose again as shadow soldiers, Suho's arsenal expanded, adding to his ever-growing army. His intelligence stat had increased, allowing him to control up to 5 shadow soldiers simultaneously. Baru, unimpressed, couldn't help but draw comparisons to the colossal armies of the Shadow Monarch. His remarks carried a hint of disdain, and Suho, clearly bothered, nudged the ant to silence. Moving deeper into the field, they finally arrived at their destination. Fang, guiding the way, pointed to a spot that held significant meaning. It was here, he explained, that the gate to the sacred grounds had once stood. Suho stood at a vantage point, his sharp eyes scanning the scene below. The area was far from deserted, much to his dismay. Despite the late hour, there were still people milling about. Suho observed the activity with growing suspicion. He questioned their presence, noting that monster hunting was more practical during the day. His unease deepened as his gaze landed on an armored car rolling into the area. Near the gate, a group of guards stood on high alert, their demeanor anything but friendly. From the car, 3 civilians emerged, their hands bound and eyes blindfolded. The scene was unsettling, and the truth of the situation became clear. These people were captives, and their captors were anything but kind. Suho's attention was particularly drawn to one thug who roughly grabbed a girl's face, mocking her with cruel amusement. Suho's expression hardened. He turned to Baru for confirmation, his instincts already telling him what was happening. It was a kidnapping. Plain and simple. Baru, cautious as always, advised against interference. As trespassers themselves, any involvement could jeopardize Suho's status as a hunter. The risks were high, and logic dictated they stay out of it. But before Baru could finish his warning, Suho was already gone. The young man's actions were rooted in his upbringing. With a father who had been a police officer specializing in violent crimes, and a grandfather celebrated as a legendary firefighter, Suho had grown up surrounded by examples of bravery and justice. These influences had shaped him into someone who acted first and considered the consequences later, especially when lives were at stake. At just 21 years old, Sung Suho carried the weight of that legacy, driven by a deep-seated sense of right and wrong. Suho launched himself into the fray with remarkable precision, delivering a flying kick to the back of the thug's head who was harassing the girl. The impact sent the man sprawling, and the suddenness of Suho's arrival left the onlookers frozen in shock, unable to comprehend where he had come from. The remaining thugs turned towards him, their expressions shifting from confusion to rage. Suho, however, realized something unsettling. He had acted on impulse again. Trespassing on another guild's territory was a serious offense, and his actions had complicated things. But instead of retreating, Suho quickly devised a solution. Using one of his shadow soldiers, he masked his face, taking on the guise of a mysterious hero. His transformation was complete. He now looked like a figure of justice, ready to confront the wrongdoers. The thugs, seeing Suho's sudden change, shouted in defiance. They grabbed whatever weapons they could find and charged at him with reckless aggression. Suho remained calm, his movements fluid as he dodged their attacks with ease. His flexibility and speed were unparalleled, and not a single strike landed on him. In his mind, Suho assessed the situation with precision. He had learned that the Hyena Guild's members were mostly D-rank awakeners, significantly weaker than him. With this in mind, he resolved to tone down his strength, ensuring that he didn't cause unnecessary harm. Seizing an opportunity, Suho hurled his axe with pinpoint accuracy. It streaked through the air like a bullet, bypassing 2 of the attackers and striking the third thug directly. The force of the impact sent the man flying back with such power that it seemed as if he had been launched into the sky. The other 2 thugs froze, their confidence shattered by the display of strength. Suho didn't let the moment pass. Using their distraction to his advantage, he unleashed a flying kick that connected with both men simultaneously. They crumpled to the ground with a deafening thud, completely defeated. From a distance, Baru observed the fight with a mix of pride and amazement. The ant marveled at Suho's
Suho's rapid growth, noting how D-rank opponents, who would have posed a challenge to most, were no longer a match for the young monarch. After the fight, Suho accessed his stats window, his eyes scanning the details with satisfaction. He had reached level 16, marking his steady progress. Turning his attention back to the defeated thugs, Suho tied them up efficiently. Meanwhile, the now freed hostages approached Suho cautiously, their gratitude evident. They asked if he was a hunter from the Hunter Association, and Suho, not wanting to complicate matters, gave a vague affirmation. Assuring them that he would handle the rest, he urged them to leave for a safer place. With nods of relief, they departed. However, Suho couldn't shake his confusion. The actions of the Hyena Guild didn't make sense. Why were they kidnapping people? As he pondered, Fang spoke up, his tone carrying a sense of urgency. He mentioned feeling something, a reason for coming to this place. Suho, intrigued yet cautious, followed Fang's lead to a secluded area with a tightly closed shutter. Approaching the shutter, Suho hesitated for a moment before pulling it open. His breath caught at the sight before him, a grim and unsettling scene. The space resembled a prison, with cells lining the walls and an assortment of drugs and syringes scattered about. The oppressive atmosphere and the stark evidence of cruelty froze Suho momentarily. The reality of what had occurred here was horrifying. Steeling himself, Suho stepped closer, his thoughts racing. Could the Hyena Guild truly have gone this far, imprisoning people like this? Baru, standing beside him, felt a faint yet familiar energy lingering in the air. It was unsettling, raising questions about the true purpose of this place. In one of the cells, a faint sound caught Suho's attention, a soft whimper. He moved closer and saw a trembling form. At first glance, it appeared to be a dog, caged and frightened. Suho's heart sank further. What kind of operation had the Hyena Guild been running? But Fang, observing intently, corrected him. This was no ordinary dog. The creature was a young wolf, and not just any wolf. It was a descendant of the King of Beasts. This revelation startled Suho, and Fang explained further. After the Fang monarch had been defeated by the Shadow Monarch, he had taken steps to protect his remaining bloodline. A loyal guard had been assigned to escort his descendants to a sanctuary, preserving the hope that one day another Fang monarch might rise from his lineage. Fang admitted, however, that he had held no such lofty expectations. All he had wished for was for the bloodline to survive, for the descendants to live on in peace. Baru confirmed Fang's assessment, his senses detecting a faint trace of the Fang monarch's energy within the young wolf, but its vitality was alarmingly weak, and Baru warned that if left alone, the creature would likely succumb to its condition. The decision now rested with Suho. Before Suho could act, the tension in the air shifted. His instincts flared, alerting him to an unexpected presence. Something or someone was approaching. Baru quickly assessed the situation, recalling the wiped out forces outside. He had anticipated several intruders, but found only a single presence. Suho, frustrated by this oversight, prepared for another confrontation. His eyes locked on the source of the disturbance, and his confusion deepened. This wasn't a human, it was a monster. The figure emerged, exuding disdain for the defeated Hyena Guild, which had evidently failed to accomplish anything worthwhile. The monster's voice dripped with contempt as it dismissed the humans as untrustworthy. Fang's recognition of the intruder was immediate. The monster was Brocky, the very guard who had been tasked with protecting the Fang monarch's descendants. Brocky acknowledged Fang with a begrudging familiarity, his tone carrying the weight of time. Fang, however, wasted no pleasantries, demanding answers. He questioned Brocky's actions, or lack thereof, that had allowed the bloodline to fall into such dire straits. Brocky's tone grew sharp as he processed Fang's accusations, his disbelief giving way to anger. Without hesitation, he strode towards Suho, his steps heavy and deliberate. Suho observed the creature closely, quickly realizing that Brocky's movements were unnaturally fast, his strength formidable. With a growl, Brocky lashed out, claiming the young wolf from Suho's arms. His furious declaration accompanied a devastating blow aimed directly at Suho. The impact was overwhelming. Despite bracing himself, Suho was sent hurtling through the air like a missile, crashing through walls one after another until his trajectory finally ended amid the shattered remains of containers outside the desolate structure. Baru's voice echoed as he rushed to Suho's side, his concern evident. Suho, grimacing in pain, struggled to rise. The collision had left him battered, and blood trickled from a wound on his head. The sheer force of the blow had been unlike anything he had endured in recent memory. Baru pointed out the injury, but Suho dismissed his alarm, his head pounding too fiercely to tolerate Baru's loud concern. Wiping the blood from his brow, Suho tried to regain focus. Baru explained that the faint energy he had sensed earlier now made sense. It was unmistakable. It was Itarim's energy emanating from Brocky. The revelation sent a chill through Suho, even as he struggled to steady himself.
Meanwhile, Fang's voice broke through the tension, demanding answers from Brocky. He couldn't fathom what the former Guardian was doing to the descendants of the Fang monarch. Brocky's response was chilling. He revealed that his strength, even after losing his sanctuary, had been sustained through grim means. He sneered at the idea of protecting the weak, asserting that survival of the fittest was the only law that mattered. The young wolf, weak and vulnerable, was not a charge to protect but a source of sustenance. Brocky had been feeding on the wolf's blood, drawn from the Fang monarch's bloodline, to sustain and enhance his own power. Fang was horrified, his disbelief giving way to fury as he denounced Brocky's betrayal. But Brocky, consumed by his twisted belief in power, mocked Fang. He declared that Rakan's death had been inevitable because of his weakness. Only those who endured, who survived at all costs, were fit to be strong. Fang moved with precision, his blade flashing as he slashed Brocky's hand, forcing the creature to release its grip on the young wolf. Blood dripped from Brocky's wound, the crimson staining his fur as he glared at Fang, astonished and enraged by the audacity of the attack. Baru quickly scooped up the young wolf, his presence looming as he muttered disdain for the unfolding chaos. The sword, seemingly alive, returned to Suho's grasp, its energy radiating a fierce determination. Fang, now brimming with anger, called out to Suho, his voice firm. Suho acknowledged Fang's fury, but made it clear that this fight was now a shared mission. There was something personal at stake for him too. With a glint of steel in his eyes, Suho declared an alliance between Shadow and Fang, signaling a significant shift in the battle's stakes. For Suho, this wasn't merely about survival, it was a step closer to uncovering the mystery of Iterem and ultimately finding answers about his father. Brocky, however, was not one to be intimidated. The insult of Fang's defiance and Suho's presence enraged him further. His growl deepened as he dismissed them as mere nuisances, vowing to kill them both. A notification appeared before Suho, presenting a new quest. It was simple yet foreboding. Hunt the hyena Brocky and secure your safety. Baru, observing the escalating confrontation, lamented his inability to directly intervene, his sadness evident. Suho's attention flickered briefly to the scene around him. The mention of Brocky's name brought clarity. The Hyena Guild, its monstrous origins, and the kidnappings, all of it pointed toward a connection to Iterem. This realization only deepened Suho's resolve to confront Brocky. As Suho and Brocky prepared to clash, a sudden voice broke the silence. The tied-up thugs, their fear palpable, screamed for Brocky's help. They begged for rescue, offering their loyalty in return. Brocky paused, his gaze shifting toward the desperate men. Their pleas echoed in the space, a pitiful sound that grated on Suho's nerves. Sensing the danger, Suho moved swiftly, determined to stop Brocky before he acted. But Brocky was faster. In a display of raw savagery, he widened his jaws and lunged at the helpless men. Before Suho could intervene, Brocky unleashed his fury, tearing through the thugs with merciless precision. Blood sprayed across the room, mingling with their agonized cries. The sheer brutality of the act leaving Suho frozen in horror. The aftermath was chilling. Brocky stood amidst the carnage, his gaze sharp and unyielding, a predator reveling in dominance. Suho's shock turned to fury, and he launched himself into the air, his blade cutting through the air with deadly precision. But Brocky, unflinching, met the attack head-on, catching the strike with his bare hands. Suho's anger exploded, fueled by Brocky's callous disregard for life. The fight intensified as the two clashed. Suho questioned the monstrous creed that justified such senseless killing, but Brocky's response was chilling. To Brocky, power alone dictated who could live and who must die. Brocky delivered a devastating blow, sending Suho crashing into the stacked containers. Pain shot through Suho's body, but his resolve only hardened. As Brocky closed the gap, Suho retaliated, landing a powerful jab to his opponent's face. The impact was sharp, but Brocky barely faltered, retaliating with a flurry of strikes. Yet Suho's agility kept him one step ahead, weaving through the onslaught and countering with precision. The battle reached a fever pitch as Brocky dug his foot into the ground and launched himself forward, unleashing a devastating attack that shook the entire space. The air rippled with the force of his assault, and for a moment it seemed as if Suho had been overwhelmed. Brocky scanned the area, his predatory gaze searching for his foe. Then in a blur of motion, Suho descended from above with incredible speed. Brocky looked up just in time to see the blade flash. Suho's attack connected with a deafening impact, the fang activating Storm Slash and carving a deep wound across Brocky's chest. Brocky staggered, blood dripping from the fresh wound, but his rage only grew. He roared in defiance, mocking the strength of both Suho and the relic of the Fang Monarch. His arrogance left him vulnerable, and Suho seized the moment. The fang pierced Brocky's chest, its blade slicing through flesh with deadly precision. Brocky's confidence shattered as the weapon twisted, cutting deeper and severing his strength. Fang's voice pierced the tense air, heavy with sorrow and disbelief as he confronted Brocky. The once loyal subordinate, who had sworn fealty to Lord Rakan, now stood consumed by rage and betrayal. Brocky's expression darkened as he processed Fang's words. Memories of his past loyalty clashed violently with his present despair. He admitted, almost begrudgingly, that he had once respected Rakan, but that sentiment dissolved into an agonized denial. He grasped the blade impaled in his chest, his roar reverberating with defiance. With a guttural cry, Brocky ripped the fang blade from his body and hurled it to the ground, the weapon shattering upon impact. His rage spilled forth as he proclaimed the truth of his past. He had never respected Rakan. He had only knelt out of necessity, enslaved by strength he could not overcome. To him, the life of weakness was a nightmare he refused to relive. Suho's eyes widened as he saw the shattered remains of the fang. His attempt to speak was cut short as Brocky struck with devastating force. Brocky's knee connected with Suho's gut, driving the air from his lungs and blood from his mouth. In that moment of agony, Suho's thoughts turned to his father, fighting somewhere in a distant realm. The thought ignited a spark within him, a determination not to falter. Drawing strength from the shadows, Suho summoned his soldiers, their energy coursing into his arms. With a clenched fist and renewed vigor, Suho rolled his arm and unleashed a devastating uppercut. The blow connected with Brocky's jaw, sending the monstrous figure flying through the air like a missile, crashing far from the battlefield. The shattered remains of the fang blade lay scattered across the ground, faint traces of its power seeping into the air. Fang's consciousness stirred within the broken weapon, his thoughts heavy with the weight of the future. The survival of his successor and the legacy of the Fang Monarch rested on this moment. As Fang's awareness sharpened, his gaze fell upon the young wolf, injured but rising to its feet. The creature sniffed the air, its instincts alive and searching. Fang, inspired by Suho's indomitable spirit, realized the final gift he could bestow. Summoning the remnants of his power, he channeled it into the young wolf, his energy flowing like a tide of light. Baru watched intently as the wave of energy surged into the wolf. The transformation was immediate, the creature's form pulsing with newfound strength. It howled into the air, its cry resonating with the power of a true successor. Suho battled fiercely against Brocky, each clash of their strength echoing through the space. Despite his best efforts, Suho struggled to match Brocky's overwhelming power. His precise maneuvers and relentless attacks barely made a dent in the monstrous foe, who stood unyielding. The strain was evident as Suho's energy depleted rapidly, his health dropping to its final sliver. Yet even on the brink of collapse, he refused to yield. Suho clenched his fist, determination burning in his eyes. He had believed he was stronger, but the brutal reality of the fight challenged that belief. As Brocky strode toward him with an air of disdain, the predator prepared to deliver the final blow. Suho's mind raced, questioning if victory was even possible. Brocky extended his claws, lunging at Suho with a murderous intent. Suho saw the razor-sharp talons coming closer, the inevitability of his end looming. In that critical moment, a blur of movement erupted from the side. The young wolf, now imbued with newfound strength, leapt forward. With powerful jaws, it intercepted Brocky's attack, clamping down on his arm. The wolf's teeth sank deep into the flesh, halting the strike. Suho's chest heaved with relief as he watched the wolf's intervention. Brocky let out a guttural growl, pain rippling through him as he struggled against the creature. Blood seeped from the punctures in his arm, the wolf's bite unrelenting. As Suho observed the wolf closely, a series of notifications appeared before him. The system recognized the young wolf's actions as a display of respect for Suho's determination. The message asked if Suho would accept the successor of the Fang into his party. The idea caught him off guard. A mere baby wolf showing such potential. The realization settled in as the notification revealed the wolf's lineage, tied to the legendary Fang Monarch. Brocky's eyes widened in rage and recognition. The beast bellowed accusations, claiming Suho had absorbed the mana of Rakan's fangs. Suho pieced the situation together. The Fang Monarch's remnants had sacrificed themselves to empower their heir. It all aligned with his intentions to ally with the Fang from the start. Suho made his choice, and the system confirmed it. The successor of the Fang was now officially part of his party. As the bond solidified, a rush of unfamiliar knowledge surged into Suho's mind, overwhelming overwhelming him momentarily. In a dark, ethereal space, Brocky appeared, seated beside the young wolf. His expression was solemn, burdened by memories of past failures. He reflected on their defeat in the war against the Shadow Monarch, a loss that had rewritten the rules of survival in their world. For the Fang to thrive, Brocky believed that the strength was paramount, and the heir had to rise above all challenges. He placed a gentle hand on the young wolf, a rare moment of affection, earning a fleeting smile from the creature. Suddenly, a shift in the atmosphere caught Brocky's attention. At the entrance of a shadowy cave, a group of peculiar figures emerged, their presence ominous and foreboding. Brocky's demeanor changed, trembling as he recognized the danger they posed. One among them stepped forward, addressing Brocky with chilling indifference. Without hesitation, the stranger dropped a glowing stone directly into Brocky's eye. Pain and confusion twisted through him as something sinister awakened within. The young wolf, witnessing the transformation, howled in terror, the sound echoing through the void. The strangers revealed their intentions with cruel precision. Brocky, now a pawn in their schemes, was tasked with capturing humans alive and delivering them. The thing implanted in him amplified his strength, but it came at a grave cost. It warped desires, turning them into tools of destruction. The young wolf, hoping for a similar boon, was struck with crushing disappointment. The power came with a sinister price, one that twisted everything it touched. Back in the present, Suho processed the flood of memories, piecing together the tragedy of Brocky's descent. These were not just Brocky's memories, they were the shared experiences of the Fang's heir. Suho realized the connection between the strangers and the sinister plots of the Iterim. The young wolf's determination wasn't driven by vengeance. It was fueled by a desperate attempt to save Brocky from the madness that consumed him. Suho's resolve hardened. If Brocky's madness was tied to the schemes of these mysterious enemies, then defeating him wasn't just about survival, it was a step toward uncovering the truth. But as Suho assessed his own strength, he knew he was still far from the power needed to overcome Brocky. Suho's vision flickered as a notification appeared before him. A new quest had been issued, tied to his recent recruitment. The quest, titled Monarch's Heirs, tasked him with finding and recruiting the heirs of the Monarchs as allies. The current status displayed 1 allied heir out of 8. Alongside this, another notification hinted at a unique development. A bond skill was forming due to his connection with the successor of the Fang. Baru observed intently. The experience Suho was undergoing was unlike anything seen with the previous monarch. It was a transformation born of Suho's unique approach, something distinct and powerful. But Brocky wasn't going to stand idle. With a feral roar, he charged forward, his massive fist cocked back and crackling with raw force. As he unleashed the punch, the sheer power of the impact sent shockwaves tearing through the space, scattering dust and debris in all directions. When the dust settled, another notification appeared. The bond skill had been successfully created. Brocky's eyes widened as he realized his attack had been stopped mid-swing. Suho stood before him, transformed. His hair now gleamed white like that of a wolf, his presence radiating strength and ferocity. Suho had caught Brocky's wrist in an unyielding grip, his expression calm yet commanding. The system detailed the new ability of beast possession, that by merging with the successor of the Fang, Suho could enhance his abilities, spending mana every second to gain the heightened senses and instincts of a beast. Brocky, refusing to accept the change, swung his other arm, claws extended, yet Suho moved with inhuman speed, dodging the attack effortlessly. With a newfound confidence surging through him, Suho countered. Bam! He launched a devastating sidekick under Brocky's chin, the impact reverberating through the arena. Brocky's head snapped upward from the force, leaving him stunned. For a moment, confusion and disbelief swirled within Brocky. This child, who had struggled to hold his ground earlier, was now overpowering him with ease. Fear crept into his thoughts, mingling with the desperation of what was at stake. Brocky knew that defeat would strip him of everything: his pride, his power, his very existence. Refusing to succumb, Brocky mustered all his strength and swung a massive fist again, determined to reclaim control. But Suho, emboldened by his transformation, blocked the attack with ease. Baru observed from the sidelines, his sharp senses detecting the change. Suho's mana had increased significantly, signaling a power surge. Brocky, however, refused to acknowledge the shift, his roar echoing across the battlefield. He declared the superiority of his species, claiming that the difference in strength between them was insurmountable and rooted in their very nature. Brocky's fist clashed with Suho's, the impact sending shockwaves through the air. Despite the force of the collision, both stood their ground, neither yielding an inch. Suho's vision lit up with a notification. He had learned a new skill, martial arts, level 1. Baru, now brimming with indignation, silently condemned Brocky's arrogance. Baru mentioned that no species could claim superiority over the Shadow Monarch, who reigned at the apex of all creation. Brocky began to falter, his eyes widening with sudden realization as he pieced together Suho's true nature. But there was no time to dwell on his revelation. Suho leapt high into the air, his movements imbued with the combined strength of his beastly senses and martial prowess. Channeling all his power into a single decisive strike, Suho brought his leg down in a devastating axe kick. The attack connected with Brocky's head, driving him into the ground with a deafening thud that reverberated across the mountain field. Silence enveloped the battlefield as the dust settled. Suho separated from the successor of the Fang, his transformation fading as he returned to his normal form. Exhaustion took hold of him, his chest heaving with labored breaths. Brocky lay sprawled on the ground, defeated and breathing his last. With his strength waning, Brocky's voice softened. His final thoughts revealed his desperation to grow stronger, his regret palpable. Memories of Sir Ra-Khan surfaced, his anger stemming from his failure to protect his master. As life left Brocky's body, a notification appeared before Suho. Hyena Brocky has been defeated. You have leveled up. Baru acknowledged Suho's efforts with pride, praising the young monarch for his performance. Suho, however, was deep in thought, piecing together the recent events. He recalled Baru mentioning a strange energy from Brocky earlier and shared what he had discovered. Suho had briefly glimpsed the memories of Fang's heir and saw how hunters had inserted something into Brocky's eye during a dungeon raid. The action was suspicious and pointed towards a sinister purpose. Suho questioned whether these hunters were tied to the Itarim and wondered about their objective in targeting the wolf. Baru explained that the hunters were likely not direct members of the Itarim, but might have been their apostles. The outer gods seldom acted themselves, preferring to manipulate events through others to disrupt causality. He theorized that what these hunters had done could be connected to an impending invasion of their world. The realization weighed on Suho that the apostles of the Itarim were already on Earth. Baru, sensing Suho's resolve, offered a solution. He proposed devouring Brocky's corpse, which would allow him to access the wolf's memories of the Itarim. Additionally, it would help him recover his depleted mana, making the act doubly beneficial. Suho was taken aback by Baru's unique ability, but didn't dwell on it. Instead, he shifted his attention to the young wolf. The creature had endured much, and Suho felt a strong connection to it. Gently, he extended an invitation, asking if the wolf would join him on his journey. The response was playful and affectionate. The wolf licked Suho, its trust evident. Suho couldn't help but laugh at the gesture, feeling a sense of companionship form between them. With the decision made, Suho retrieved the key and opened the entrance to a shadow dungeon. Standing beside the heir of Fang, he prepared to step into the mysterious space. Before entering, he turned to Baru, entrusting him with the crucial task of uncovering Brocky's memories. Baru, deeply moved by Suho's unwavering confidence, vowed to fulfill his duty. In the depths of the Shadow Realm, Suho, Baru, and the young wolf walked through the eerie landscape of the Shadow Dungeon. Baru was curious and slightly perplexed as to why Suho had chosen to come here instead of returning home. Suho explained his intentions. He wanted to find a suitable place for the heir of Fang to live. He noted that the wolf had no guardian left, and its sanctuary was destroyed, leaving it in a pitiable state. As they ventured deeper into the dungeon, a notification appeared in front of Suho, prompting him to give Fang's heir a name. The wolf barked excitedly as if encouraging Suho to proceed. Suho took a moment to consider, then decided on a straightforward name. Gray, inspired by the wolf's fur color. The wolf seemed delighted by the choice, wagging its tail in approval. Baru, however, couldn't help but reflect that Suho's naming sense bore a striking resemblance to the simplicity of the monarch's own. Suho announced that the forest within the Shadow Dungeon would be designated as Gray's new territory, instructing the wolf to make good use of it. Gray barked in agreement, a sense of determination and pride emanating from the young beast. Suho then turned to Baru to inquire about what Gray might eat. Baru speculated that, as a descendant of Fang, Gray could sustain himself on living organisms or monsters. This revelation was a relief to Suho, who realized there were still monsters lurking in the dungeon that needed to be dealt with. Nearby, a goblin hiding in the bushes overheard their conversation, but Gray's predatory instincts kicked in. In a flash, the wolf leaped toward the goblin and devoured it with precision. Gray then turned his attention to other hidden goblins, swiftly eliminating them one by one. Suho observed the scene while perched on a tree, impressed by Gray's Braki's agility and skill. As Suho took a moment to rest, a notification for a quest reward appeared. He had obtained the title Wolf Slaughterer, which left him momentarily puzzled. He thought back to Braki, wondering aloud whether the creature was actually a hyena. Baru suggested they overlook such trivial details. Shifting focus, Suho reflected on the broader quest objectives. The task was clear. He needed to locate the heirs of the monarchs and make them his allies. Baru began to elaborate on the modifications made to Suho's leveling system. He explained how, in its original design, the system was laden with ill intentions. It had been created to forcefully accelerate the growth of a human, Sung Jin Woo, with the ultimate goal of making him the vessel for the Shadow Monarch. This scheme, orchestrated by the architect, had sinister implications. Once the objective was fulfilled, the soul of Suho's father, Sung Jin Woo, was supposed to be eradicated. However, Sung Jin Woo defied the system's intentions, transcended its constraints, and became the Shadow Monarch through his own will. As a result, he ascended to a level where the system and leveling up became unnecessary. Hearing this, Suho reflected on his own journey. He questioned whether the system now existed to shape him into the next Shadow Monarch. Baru, however, reassured him that such a possibility was impossible. There could only be one Shadow Monarch in existence, and that title belonged to his father. Instead, Baru suggested that the system now acted as a guide, adapting to Suho's progress and helping him navigate his path. Any new functions or quests offered by the system were likely designed to aid him in achieving his own goals. Curious, Suho brought up his status window. He noted how much he had grown, recalling his time at level 1 when he was relentlessly pursued by the Mistborns. His stats had increased significantly since then, and he had acquired a variety of useful skills. Despite this progress, Suho admitted he still felt weak. The recent battle with Braki, the heir of the Fang, was proof of this. If not for Gray and the unexpected appearance of the bond skill, he might have lost that fight. With this in mind, Suho resolved to clear the quests presented by the system, believing they aligned with his desires. Completing these challenges might eventually lead him to his parents. Suho turned to Baru and inquired about his earlier attempt to delve into Braki's memories. Baru shared his findings, explaining that he found no evidence of Iterim apostles brainwashing Braki. This was disappointing, as it left them without direct clues about the Iterim's involvement. However, Baru wasn't without insight. Within Braki's memories were details of humans who had created the Hyena Guild to oversee Braki and had been involved in rescuing kidnapped humans. Among those memories, a name stood out: Grim Reaper Guild. Baru suggested that this group might hold valuable information related to the Iterim. If they investigated the guild further, it could lead to critical discoveries about the mysterious forces that threaten their world. In the Grim Reaper Guild, a phone buzzed in a quiet office. Lee Min-sung, the vice CEO of the guild and an A-rank hunter, picked it up. On the other end was Lim Tae-gyu, an S-rank hunter who had recently left for Southeast Asia to assist with a raid. However, the tone of the call was far from cordial. Tae-gyu brought up a pressing issue, referencing a news article about the Hyena Guild incident. He accused Min-sung of being behind the events, suggesting that his involvement would not remain a secret for long. Min-sung, unbothered by the accusations, responded with sarcasm and dismissiveness, attempting to steer the conversation away from the topic. But Tae-gyu remained firm, warning Min-sung that his actions would catch up with him. He cautioned him not to underestimate the association or its chairman, who was known for his unwavering authority. Before Min-sung could respond, Tae-gyu ended the call abruptly. Fuming with rage, Min-sung smashed the table in front of him. His frustration grew as he reflected on Tae-gyu's audacity. Once merely his driver, Tae-gyu had risen to S-rank status, gaining power and confidence that Min-sung found intolerable. Still seething, Min-sung shifted his thoughts to the recent destruction of the Hyena Guild and the mysterious figure responsible for it. Survivors of the incident spoke of a young hunter clad in a black mask, but there wasn't enough information to identify him. Dismissing the matter, Min-sung decided it wasn't worth his time to focus on an unknown adversary. Reaching into his pocket, Min-sung pulled out a mystical stone that shimmered faintly in the light. This was Stardust, a hunter awakening stimulant, a substance capable of enhancing abilities and power. For Min-sung, it represented more than just potential strength. It was the cornerstone of his plans to elevate himself above scrutiny and criticism. If his business with Stardust succeeded, he believed no one, not even the association, would dare to look down on him again. Min-sung's ambitions burned brightly, but the shadows of his actions and the forces closing in around him hinted at a reckoning yet to come. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Until next time.